my YouTube friends! Gamers and streamers could be about to go extinct. I wish that was hyperbole, but it's just straight up reality of the way that things are moving. If you're an average Joe who loves gaming, live streaming, or both, and you're just getting started, or you have plans to build a game streaming channel in the future, well, those plans are in serious jeopardy. Hell, if you're a person who just loves to fire up a game on the old PC after a hard day at work or school and escape for a few hours, you're probably gonna want to hear this. So buckle up, my friends. I got a lot to unpack for you here, so you know what? Let's get to it! Now this video isn't gonna be all doom and gloom, I promise. I think there are actually two storms brewing, and one of these is gonna win. You can't be a part of the correct storm if you don't know that it's happening. So this video will hopefully be your weather vane. How we got here. Now please humor me for a bit. I'm about to go a little boomer on you, and I apologize in advance to my younger audience. Growing up without the internet may seem like a nightmare for a lot of you, but it was actually pretty awesome. There was nothing better than hitting the music store on a weekend with your buddies and searching through the racks and racks of CDs to find the most metal looking one. How did we know it was an actual metal album? We didn't. But if dudes on the back were dressed in leather and holding guitars, and the image on the front had skulls or some sort of evil looking imagery, it was a pretty good bet that it was. So how did we know if it was good? Well, we didn't know that either until we got it home and gave it a listen. But the thing is, this whole process created a lived experience between you and your friends, and you also owned the music that you just bought. So I paid whatever I paid, and I could listen to the music I just bought commercial free forever. And a lot of that music is still on my phone today. Digital music kind of changed all that though. The iPod and Apple's music service gave people a way to just grab the music they wanted and download it to a device. Now, this maintained the illusion that you still owned it because it was on the device. But in reality, Apple made it as difficult as possible to ever get the music out of their ecosystem. And then of course, this led to streaming services like Spotify. For free, you could listen to anything at any time with commercials. A lot like a radio, except with personal music selections. And for a small fee, you could remove the commercials and just have your personal playlist without any interruptions. All this had good and bad ramifications. I think it was good because it democratized music. Everybody had access to any music from any era at any time. The result is that my kids are as familiar with the music I grew up with as I am in a lot of ways. Now, I can definitely tell you that I was never exposed to the music of my parents' youth or my grandparents' youth growing up. It's not uncommon for kids these days to be Metallica fans, Anthrax fans, or even Beatles fans for that matter. Now, the downside is that artists were squeezed dry when physical media sales disappeared, and they were forced to make money through touring pretty much exclusively. You might be asking yourself right now, Mike, what does any of this have to do with gaming or streaming disappearing? Well, here it is. The pattern you see here in the music industry, where they turned a physical product, albums, cassettes, or CDs, into a monthly subscription and removed the product that you actually owned, has happened over and over and over again since then. Movies and TV eventually went to streaming services, which charged a small fee for commercial-free viewing of almost everything that you could think of. And of course, this turned into every studio opening up their own streaming service, charging more and adding in commercials. Inevitably, this ends up more expensive than the cable model, where you watch TV and then you bought movies that you wanted to own. It also all but destroyed movie theaters, taking away another shared human experience and replacing it with something worse. But I digress. And they've also done this with software. You don't own it, you rent it for a monthly fee. And the software you do own, like games, are still digital and can be yanked away from you at any time, even though you paid for it. Now, all of this was sold to us as being easier and more convenient, and of course cheaper. People just jumped on board, excited about the value and variety that they were getting. Once on board, they were upsold and squeezed by corporate America until the end product is more expensive and less quality than what we started out with. Where are we now? And that brings us to where we are today. RAM prices have spiked and hard drive prices are following suit. And of course, at the height of this spike, two RAM suppliers, Micron and Corsair, have decided to just abandon the consumer market altogether. Why? In a word, AI. Supplying memory to AI data centers is a much more stable and profitable market for them at the moment. And unfortunately, that fact is undeniable. And here's the issue that consumers should have with this strategy. The semiconductor tech industries are behaving as if the consumer market is indefinitely patient, the PC ecosystem is guaranteed, the AI payoff is inevitable. None of these assumptions are proven at all. Now, what is proven is that consumers built the PC market. Consumers normalized scale, and of course, us consumers absorbed decades of risk through upgrade cycles. And now, when margins elsewhere look better, consumers are treated as expendable ballast. That's not just disrespectful, it's strategically reckless for these companies. But that is where we are. This affects gamers and streamers because rigs to game and stream are no longer affordable. Sure, established streamers are gonna be able to keep up, but the beginner just can't expand and grow because the equipment is just too expensive. By an example, I recently bought an old BMW to restore in my garage. And then I bought an NVIDIA RTX 5090 to run local AI models. The graphics card was more expensive than the old car. I'm not even kidding. And that's just not affordable. Now, obviously, you don't need a 5090 to run a good gaming or streaming rig. But here's the thing. Your choices are getting slimmer too because NVIDIA and other graphics card companies are reducing the number of budget cards they offer as well. And this is going to limit your choices and raise the prices on the cards that are left on the market. Now, console companies, whom PC gamers have largely abandoned at this point, are pretty excited, I'm sure. But as anyone who's lived through the latest wave of console releases knows, Sony and Microsoft use the exact same tactics as the RAM companies without even having the external excuses like AI data centers to justify it. The pricing was ridiculous for those systems to start, and they were produced in such small quantities, people ended up paying a premium just to get one. And you know that shortage was on purpose, so where's it all going? Well, as of right now, the prices are going to continue upward with no relief in sight. So the next logical step is going to be, can you guess? That's right, hardware as a service. You can't afford to buy a graphics card to run that game? No problem. We'll rent you time on our card so that you can game. Microsoft, Sony, and NVIDIA would love to sell you a monthly subscription to their hardware services that allow you to play their games. This would also squeeze Steam out of the mix, which they're already currently trying to find a way to do anyways. I mean, they don't want those pesky independent developers out there. But here's the thing. We bought into music as a service, we bought into movies as a service, and even software as a service. They are counting on this one too. Then they truly have the own nothing and be happy model that they've been preaching about for years. And maybe it's inevitable. Given history here, it seems like it is. But there is a storm front growing on the other side. A massive miscalculation on their part that they think can be controlled by slick marketing. But I'm not so sure it can. See, the big flaw here is AI. On a couple of different fronts. AI companies have overpromised and undelivered, and people are starting to notice. This is the part that the executives dodge. AI today is, well, impressive at narrow tasks. It's useful as an assistant tool like emails and that sort of stuff, and it's fragile and opaque and costly at any kind of scale. But here's what it is not, at least yet. A reliable labor replacement, any kind of margin positive software layer so it makes no money, and it's definitely not a universally productivity positive tool yet at all. There hasn't been a single product directly related to AI that makes any of these companies any money. And it's getting to the point where they desperately need these to start making a profit to offset the massive cash outlay on these billion-dollar data centers. And it gets worse for them. On top of that, there's the simple human cost that's starting to come to light. What studies are increasingly showing is that not all AI makes people stupid, but that uncritical delegation reduces skill retention. Cognitive offloading weakens the ability to reason, especially when it goes unchecked. Over-reliance without scaffolding degrades expertise, so less experts. Now, we've already seen this same phenomenon in other things like GPS that negatively affects spatial reasoning. Except this time, this touches reasoning, synthesis, and judgment, higher order skills. And here's the damning part. Although not very surprising, there is no serious consumer-facing strategy to prevent any of this erosion. And then there's the quietest red flag of them all. There is no plan B for job displacement. There's absolutely no coherent retraining pipeline. There's no labor transition framework. There's no credible timeline. There's no safety net refunding model. The unspoken assumption seems to be the market will figure it out. But markets don't figure out mass displacement without social instability, political backlash, regulatory overreach, and consumer spending collapse. Which all leads to the ultimate irony. The same consumers being squeezed now are the ones that AI companies ultimately need to stay solvent. You can't hollow out the middle class and expect some subscription software service to thrive. Now, from the consumer's point of view, the message is pay more for hardware, subsidize the AI infrastructure, lose privacy, lose leverage, lose skills, lose jobs eventually. Trust us, it will all be worth it. That's not a value proposition, that's a demand, and consumers are starting to catch on and reject it. So what can you do? 2026 is going to be the tipping point, I think. This is the last year that AI continued to drain billions with no return in sight. And we need to make sure that they don't see any hope of a return. Now, right now, Wall Street keeps propping them up with more investment cash in the hopes that they're going to find a product that turns things around. And at the end of 2025, we've all seen AI companies get more desperate to justify this by running AI ads attempting to tout AI features to the masses. So those of us who know what's going on need to talk to our normie friends. You know, the ones who just watch some YouTube and play a game here and there, but aren't really plugged into tech. These are the folks that the companies that are putting on these commercials are trying to reach to get them hooked. So please educate your friends and most of all, convince them not to pay for these services. And OpenAI is soon going to release a model of ChatGPT that has ads in it. And once it starts doing that, we've got to stop using it altogether. As an aside, you shouldn't be paying for these services either. Absolutely use them for free. That just bleeds cash from AI companies. But if you need to use AI more seriously, run local models that are free and about as good as the ones they're trying to get you to pay for. And most importantly, use any platform you have to continue to debunk and dismantle the promotion of these products by pointing out the flaws and undelivered promises, and most importantly, the negative social impacts. And I haven't even talked about the negative impacts of these ridiculous data centers, but you can look it up. Now, if you pay any attention to X, and it's perfectly understandable if you don't, this is already happening with every empty statement these companies make to try to prop up AI being torn to shreds, made fun of, and turned into a meme. One of the more entertaining ones recently is microslop. Microsoft's CEO doesn't like the term slop, so the consumer just called it like they see it, and I'm all here for it. It is time for these companies to come back to a more consumer-focused model instead of just taking advantage of the very users who built them. Now, I'm not here to say AI has no place in the modern world. I use local AI every day for simple tasks that help me create better content faster. And it also does my taxes. But after a crash, we can take back control. Development can happen organically over time, within constraints of reasonable budgets, and more responsible oversight. AI is not like previously disruptive tech. That stuff just made one sector change relatively quickly while the rest of us could catch up. AI is going to change every sector of society practically overnight. Now, I don't know about you, but I think that kind of disruptive change should have a much longer and broader public discussion about what we want it to look like. I also don't think it should be owned by any singular entity, i.e. some company. Corporations already treat consumers like garbage. They can't be responsible with the kind of power that AI is going to allow them to wield. I also don't think it should be owned by government. I think it should probably be publicly owned, and we should all have the chance to vote on the people who get the power. But that's just what I think. Tell me what you think down in the comments. And please talk to your normie friends, tell your parents and your grandparents. Hype and share this video if you think it's going to help. And if you're always looking for tools, tips, and tricks to help make you a better live streamer or YouTuber, subscribe to the channel. My name is Michael Feyrer Jr. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.